Parshas Chayei is the first time we find basic human events that are, in our day and age, everyday occurrences, but until now it's not mentioned at all in the Torah. Right? First of all, right, death, burial, eulogy, right, until now, all the generations that were mentioned from Adam Rishon up till Abraham and Sarah, it just said the guy died, the person of that generation died. There's like no description of the Hespedim or, the Levaya or the burial, right? And it's discussed for the first time this week's parsha in the context of what Avram did for Sarah. And it needs to be understood if this, considered to be, insignificant information as far as the tzaddikim that were active before Avram Avinu. So why is it discussed in detail by Sarah Imenu? And then after that, in the Avos after that, it is mentioned. It's always mentioned that they were buried in Maras HaMachpelah. There's so over here is the first time it was spoken in greater detail, because we also have to discuss how Abraham acquired it. And here's another thing, a basic human event called transaction. This is the first transaction mentioned in the Torah. Presumably people were engaged in business, whether buying with money or buying through the barter system. And this is the first kinyan ever made. The first kinyan is over here by Avram Avinu, buying, the Maras HaMachpelah. It's business at its best, with negotiations, with veiled threats that if not, Hashem promised me the land, so you better sell to me at a fair price. You're getting a good price anyway, etc., etc. What Rashi explains the negotiations that went on. But there's something bigger happening here, besides the fact that it's is a worthy observation as to why this is the first time there's acquisition in the Torah. This first time there's business. Right? But, B'nai Chet are mentioned over and over again. Chazal say, because they had the schus to be Mevarer Mekcho Shel Tzadik. Right? They're mentioned so many times in Torah because they were there being the witnesses that clarify the acquisition of the tzaddik. There's a tzaddik goes to the makolet and buys a bag of milk, or I go to the makolet and buy a bag of milk. What's the big deal of being Mevarer Mekcho Shel Tzadik? So that also needs to be understood. Okay. But, another theme in this week's parsha, right, is shidduchim. Right, this is the first time that we find, the whole long, the shidduch process, the going, the courting, the negotiations, and the final marriage. Right, heck, until now in the Torah, just spoke about, if it even mentioned that the person if it even mentioned that, which to the best of my memory, it only says that, Lemech, who was a descendant of Cain, was married to Ada Vitzila, right, it wasn't even mentioned who people's wives were, really. The truth is, Avram and Sarah is the first account of talking about a couple in action, and that's something worthy of note. But but the shidduch process, down to the seeking a wife, negotiating and marrying her. It's in this week's parsha for the first time. So death and burial, right? Death, the acquisition of a burial space, and burial is for the first time this week's parsha, and the whole shidduch process, with Eliezer bringing Rivka, right? Which on a small scale is also Abraham remarrying, marrying Keturah, right? But particularly Abraham, sending Eliezer to get a wife for Yitzchak, the whole shidduch process. It's all here in this week's parsha for the first time in its full glory. But as we said, it should be noted that, Abraham and Sarah is like really the first story of a normal couple. The biblical heroes prior to that are not discussed as couples. Right? But in particular over here, I guess you see Abraham and Sarah's loyalty to each other and love for each other, but how it ended so emotionally, and he really took care to give her final final honors, final respects, and then cried for her and eulogized her. Ani maklit. Hello. I'm feeling better. What can I do for you? Yeah, just hold on a second, please. Is there a pause button on this thing? 1 second, please. Not working. Yeah, okay, so what are you telling me? Yeah, so you say, so you want to buy it directly from Hyundai? No, it's basically the same deal. Basically the same deal. Yeah, I know. That was pointed out by that record place also. Okay. Sounds good. So what are you told on the student? Yes, I'm totally sorry about this 3-minute delay. Anyway, so we spoke about, death, making preparations, about with buying a burial place, few, funeral, hesped, burial. We spoke about shidduchim. We spoke about acquisitions. All these things first turn up for the first time in our parsha, right? And there's actually an interlink between the two. Seemingly shidduchim, business, and death and burial, they are all tied together. You know why? Because the foremost and most prominent way of marrying a woman is bekesef, right? Kiddushay kesef. And that's learnt out, kicha misdei Ephron, right? So Gzera Shava, it says, ki kachish isha, right? Man takes a woman. It says, Avram told Ephron, when he bought, the Marasa Machpelah, Natati Ketz Vasari Kachmi, many Kicha Misdei Ephron. So now he's a woman acquired with money, business, right? But it's also learnt out of Abraham's buying the burial place, right? And that's totally amazing, right? So that these three things, acquisition, marriage, death, and burial are all connected. But furthermore, the Gemara in Brachas Tav Ches. Gemara says, "L'zos yipalo kol chasid le'es mitzay." Right. This is what every righteous man should daven at the time of the finding. The time of the find. Right. And so they're the first. They're what is le'es mitzay? Right. So one page says, "Es mitzay zu Torah." Right. That's Torah. Es mitzay zu isha. L'shem ar matzah isha matzah toiv. Right. Le'es mitzay zu misa. Right, the finding is a day, a person, the day, the death day. Leis Mitzo zu kvura, right? Leis Mitzo is burial, right? So you have, so all these things that happen in this week's parasha are also linked together in the same drush in the Gemara and Brachas of Leis Mitzay, right? The time of the finding, Torah, right? And we're going to see that Torah parallels business. We'll speak about this later, right? Torah, Isha, Misa, Kvura. They're all there together, right? They're all in that list. They're called the Eis Mitzay. But the truth is, there's there's something to be astounded by. See, your wife, all right, or your Torah, you can understand that that's you found a treasure. It's called a find. Like we say in our colloquial talk, a mitzia. What a mitzia, right? What a catch. What a find, right? But why is death and burial, right, called mitzay, right? Finding. Similarly, it's not saying you find, it's saying that you lose, right? Right. So the Beis Yaakov from Ishbitza, right, the Beis Yaakov from Ishbitza, so he says like this, regarding the ganav, right, someone who has stolen from you in a way that you can't identify him. The ganav is one that snuck into your house and took something, as opposed to the gazlan, that's the mugger that took it right out of your hands. Right, so interestingly enough, the gazlan, the mugger too, that snatched it right out of your hands, does not pay kefil, right? Does not pay double if you ever find him, right? He just pays the keren, he just pays the capital, right? The ganav that you can't identify, right, snuck into your house and took it, right? So he pays kefil if ever found, right? And the way the Torah words is im hi matzei ti matzei biado hagneva archaim shnayim yishalem. You find the two you find the gneva in the hands of the ganav. What is the one that again you couldn't identify? He stuck it just and took it. Break-in burglary, right? So you find it intact. He pays double. He pays two, right? So now there's a certain logic, to what the Torah decreed, that a ganav pays double, right, as opposed to the gazlan only paying the capital, right? The mugger, as brazen as it was, but since he pulled it out of your hands, you could identify him and you could get it back. So it's not really lost, right? You have the hope of seeing it again. You could go to the cops, you identify him, right, and you hope to get it again, right? The ganav, the break and entry, you weren't home, you were asleep, whatever, right? You weren't in the room at that time, right? So you can't identify him, right? So you have you have certain yush, you have certain despair that you'll never see your stuff again, right? You have certain despair. So the Torah as well compensates you for that despair and that pain, and that when he is found, you get double, right? And that's why it's also called finding. Finding is something that comes out of nowhere, right? In halacha, the lost object that you have not despair of is called an aveda. It's not called a mitzvah. What's called a mitzvah is something that a person has despaired of. Its original owners were meyaesh. They have despaired of seeing it again, and that's why it's called a mitzvah. And actually, anyone who finds it, if it meets the criteria of a mitzvah, that is reasonable to assume that its original owners have despaired of it, you can take it, right? Mitzvahs mean miloshin say. It comes out of nowhere. It comes out of nowhere. Because I'll say it's one of the things that comes bes chadas. A mitzvah comes out of nowhere, right? So it comes bes chadas. You can't expect it. Right, because if you know a person is about to lose an object, then you have to return it because you know its rightful owner, right? Right. So the gneva is where he a person refines. He finds what he had given up for lost. So he finds what he had given up for lost. That's in recovering a stolen object that was stolen by gneva as opposed to gzela. Right. So there's two things to note here. Himatze means finding, and finding means that the thing was given up for gone, right? So it's finding something that was given up for gone. That's called mitzvah, right? And point two is you get double, right? That which you gave up for lost, when it comes back to you, you get double, which is more than ample compensation for the despair of having, viewed it as, dead and gone. So here's the amazing thing, right? Talking about death and burial, why they are called le'et mitzvah. Right? They are called le'et mitzvah, right? That it's mamish le'et mitzvah, like finding something that was stolen from you. That, after all that despair, you get it back, and you get it back double. That's mamish death and burial. Right? During a person's lifetime, as a result of the sin of Adam, which we're going to talk about extensively in this discourse. Right. This, as a result of the sin of Adam, right, we cannot attain perfection in this world. Right, the body is tainted, and all the spiritual power that we build up through doing our mitzvahs is not allowed to manifest itself. All right, we see. Right, that people that do mitzvahs seemingly are the same as people that don't do mitzvahs, biologically, right? We don't see that they are more immortal, right? The doctors, see the same biological, mortality, right? The truth is, frightening to say, you could even have a state where it's not even necessarily noticeable in behavior. Right, we know that in this world, even to be a better human being, that someone else to have better midot, character attributes. You act nicer. Now we should hope that, of course, doing mitzvahs has a positive effect on a person's behavior, but you could have an equally honest, ethical, and on time, type of non-religious person, because he's just well disciplined, He's just well disciplined, right? So a well disciplined heretic could have just as nice midas or even better midas theoretically than a religious Jew, because why? The heretic disciplined himself. He's very well trained. Excuse me. Hello. Why doesn't he take credit card? I paid him in credit card. All right, look, the code is 7030. Yes, 7030. There's no cash in my wallet. How much is it? I may have 300 shekel in my wallet, but however you want. I think I have 300 shekel in my wallet, okay? I am so sorry. Anyway. Right? It's not, the spiritual power of mitzvahs that make man immortal, right? Make him a truly superior being, is not able to manifest itself in this world because of how we are tainted by the sin of Adam. So you know what? You're building up all that power, building up all that spiritual power, and that spiritual power, the Derech Hashem explains, is constrained and constrained and not allowed to expand, not allowed to unfold. So like we build up all this spiritual power through our mitzvahs, but on the outwardly we seem like the same people before we did the mitzvahs, right? Like we said, we should hope we should have some type of positive psychological and ethical effect on the person, but we know that does not have to be the case, right? But it for sure is, building up spiritual power. But that spiritual power, that's mamash building immortality, is not allowed to manifest itself, right? It's because man is tainted and can't hold all that spiritual power. So that spiritual power, as well, is constrained and folded up within the man. A person needs to die in order to move on. In order for all the power that he built up, all the potential, spiritual potential he built up with his Torah learning and good deeds, he has to die. The soul has to be unfettered from the body, and then the soul outside of the tainted body could unfold, and that's what happens in the soul world prior to resurrection. Person, goes to the soul world, and there all the first of all, the soul, first and foremost, recovers from the weakness of having been in a body. It was mitigated by go into a body, and was further suffered, as it were, the incarceration in the darkness of the body, and so it has to recover from that, and then also has to have the power of the mitzvahs unfold, and then it also enjoys the radiance of Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, where it also gets a certain taste of the reward for its mitzvahs. It has to get all that spiritual power that was denied it, or alternatively, folded up in a potential form, where now it could unfold into actuality, blossom, soul blossoms. The man has to die to release the soul. All right. So, on the one hand, for the soul, death is leaving the body; it's a loss. But on the other hand, it's a gain, right? That he comes back, and he gets back to the original level that it was in before it went into a body. Plus, the power of the good deeds unfold. Plus, it gains the power of the reward on the good deeds. A taste of the reward of the good deeds from the Avira, the Gan Eden, right? And that's for the body. That's for the soul, and for the body also. See, the body is the bigger loser. Right? Not only is it dead, and now it's like an inanimate stone, but it's put into earth to decompose. Right? So, it's even a bigger loser on superficial. It's even a bigger loser of death than the soul, because it's now inanimate, and now it's also going to rot in the grave. But look at what happens. Right? We said that one of the problem of the body is that it's full of it's tainted, from the Ched of Adam Rishon, and certainly if you picked up a few of your own contaminations along the way, by doing a few averos here and there, it's got to get rid of all that contamination. Right? It's got to get rid of all that contamination. So now, in the grave, with the burial process, right, which involves decomposition, that process ensures that in the decomposition in the grave, all the bad matter goes out, right? All the bad matter goes out, and that sets the stage that by resurrection, right, the body will be only rebuilt with the good matter and not with the bad matter, right? Only with good matter, and the body really built only with good matter, with all the bad matter out, is a body that could hold the soul in its all blazing glory. And that's what happens at the resurrection. The body is rebuilt only with the good matter, right? And the soul comes down from heaven in all its glory, all its power, totally unmitigated, and plus the power of the mitzvahs, plus the power of the Avir de Gan Eden that it got, also as a little bit of a me'ain, a taste of the reward, with all that spiritual power. It goes, and the body could hold it. And then the man, upon resurrection, rapidly becomes immortal, capable of living forever and ever and basking in the divine glory of Olam Haba. So it comes like this. Look at an amazing thing. Seemingly, death is a loss, but really through death, the neshama gains liberty and freedom and an actualization of the potential built up through the mitzvahs. Seemingly, death and burial, is doubly so a loss for the body, even more so. The body's even loses by death and also loses by burial, where there decomposes, right? But it gets back double. Right? Not only does the body come back by the resurrection, but it comes back pure, right? Pristine, able to house the full glory of the neshama. So now we understand why death and burial are called mitzvah. On a superficial loss, on a superficial view, you look at it as dead and gone, literally, right? But really, you get back double. You will, himatze, leis mitzvah, you will find it again. This that you think is lost through death and burial, you will yet find it again. And when you find it again, after having given it up for gone, when you find it again, it'll be double. Right? The neshama will be double because it won't be itself only. It'll be itself plus the power of the mitzvahs, plus the power of Gan Eden. Right? The body will not just be the body itself. It'll be itself plus, right? Plus, the fact that it's only built out of good matter, right? Double good. And then certainly so when these two doubles meet together, now they could be bonded for these two, stories, the ground floor, literally ground floor of the body, and the upper floor of the soul now could be bonded forever together, right? Having each one come back as double, itself plus only goodness, right? And then and also that the doubleness, of the body and soul gufa, which is also a doubleness, now becomes a doubleness that can last, because before, it was to death do we part. It was just a matter of time, because the doubleness of body and soul couldn't hold together because of the imperfections of the body and soul, right? And now this doubleness of body and soul, that aspect of doubleness also now is a double that you could hold on to. Right? So now, everything that we discussed right now, actually has a has a parallel in man and woman. That first of all, it was a little bit inaccurate what we said, that prior to Abraham and Sarah, there was no discussion of life as a couple. Right? Abraham and Sarah were the first, and it reaches, as it were, its a high point. They see how much they loved each other and cared for each other in this week's parsha, and how Abraham took care of Sarah in her death. right? But prior to this, note this, it's like, prior to Avram and Sarah, we don't see the Torah discussing couples, right? But that wasn't accurate, right? There is one discussion of family life, right? Between man and woman, I mean to say, right? And that's by Adam. But the main center stage after Adam gets married, right? Is how they were partners in crime. By Chayei Tzadas, the woman starts talking to the snake, gets convinced, she pulls Adam down, and of course everyone blames everybody else. When God confronts everybody, right? Right. And that indeed led to that first sin. There was that first purity and then that first sin, which also made a schism in family life. And that schism in family life runs perfectly parallel, right, to the schism between body and soul. Right? Chazal say that Adam, after that sin, had parted from Chava for 130 years. This was a real crisis in their marriage. This first sin was also a crisis in their marriage. Right? And the crisis in their marriage is mamish parallel to the crisis that happened to reality itself, which manifests itself between body and soul. Right? All right, we say because of this first sin, right? So now, the body is very tainted. And the body being tainted, is not just the body's problem, also creates problems for the soul that has to very much constrain itself to be in a body, and then all the power that it builds up, doing mitzvahs within the body, all has to be constrained because the body can't hold it, the body can't let all that power unfold, right? We have that, the relationship of soul to body is a male-female relationship, right? Chazal say ishtoi kegufay, right? A woman is like a man's body, right? It doesn't say ish kegufa, man is like her body. She is like his body. Ishto kegufo, which means by converse, if she's like his body, then what is he to her? He is her soul. Or like another lashon Chazal, isha kshera oisa rotzon ba'ala, right? A good woman, right? Does the will of her husband, which is really the relationship of body and soul. Right? The soul is supposed to provide the direction, and the body is supposed to perform the mitzvahs. Right? So the woman performs the ratzon of the husband. The husband is like the soul, providing the direction, the goals and ideals, and she performs, and that's why ishto kegufo. Right? There's and of course we know everyone knows that. The famous Gemara says, Ki b'ka Hashem tzor with the name Ka, Yud and Hey, Hashem made two worlds. With Yud he made the higher world. With Hey he made the lower world, the physical world. Right? So now the word Ish has the letter Yud. Right? And the word Isha, woman, has the letter Hey. Because again, as it were, in the integrate unit, he is more like the soul from the upper world, and she's more like the body from the lower world. Right? After all, it does say that Hashem blew the breath of life, the neshama, into Adam. Then after, from Adam's body, from a rib, from a side of from his body fashioned the woman. So as it were, even though a woman has her own soul, and a man has his own body, but the integrated unit of Vayikra Shmam Adam, he called them Adam. Right? In the integrated unit, he is the soul and she is the body. Right? And therefore we could see an amazing thing. That how this first sin that was created by man and woman together, right? Just like it created a schism between body and soul, right? The biggest indication of that schism is death itself. That you see that body and soul are not reconciled, because if they would be, they would last forever. At least this time around, they're not reconciled, right? So that just like create a problem with body and soul. It created a problem showing bias, right? Right, in the big picture, the big integrated unit of man and woman, where he is like the neshama and she is like the guf. So this whole thing created that problem, created that schism. Right? What is called Kabbalistically Pagam Atzam. Man's divine image is also only complete. Right? Only complete when he is, when he's married. It's interesting, Lashon Chazal also, that a man who's not married is called plag gufa, half a body. His body is incomplete. She's his body, right? He is her soul. And it's also beso zulishto. A woman, a man's home is his wife. You only need a house for a body. House is your residence in this physical realm. All right, so that's the woman is the body. The woman is the house. The body is the house of the neshama, right? There's and just like a person was Adam Rishon, and the sin was pogem the tzelem, and the pagam hatzelem is a schism between body and soul. This pagam hatzelem is also between man and wife, right? Because, being together is the hashlamas hatzelem, right? Ashoy blo isha, ashoy blo Torah, ashoy blo bracha, Gemara and Yevamis. Person without his wife has no simcha. He's just incomplete, and he's even spiritually incomplete. He has no Torah. He has no blessing. Right? The integrated unit of Vayikra Shmam Adam, and they were called Adam, man and wife together, which is body and soul together. Right? So now, it could be said, right? The sin of Adam caused fragmentation, right? And as a result, fragmentation, which Kabbalah calls that shviras hakelim, right? The vessels broke. There was a certain primordial breakage that became a lot worse, through the chet of Adam Rishon, what we call fragmentation. And this fragmentation is, and how you could work hard and still your efforts bear no, that's you could have to work very hard and you get minimal results because, the effort and the results are not aligned. They're fragmented, right? As we explained in Parshas Bereshis, right? And then this also reflects, the body and soul. They're fragmented. They're not perfectly united. And that's why each one pulls in their own direction. That's why they ultimately have to die. And that's also that fragmentation exists between man and wife. That's why, it's very challenging to have a good marriage. It's not something to be taken for granted. You have to invest a lot of work. It doesn't go naturally smoothly. But also to get married, you got to find your wife. As it were, your rib is missing. That's what the Gemara says at the beginning of Kiddushin. Right? Why does a man have to, chase the woman, as it were? Right? Because derech bal aveda lachsa avedaso. He who owns the lost object has to seek his lost object. As it were, a woman is man's rib, for lack of a better word. When lost, right, you have to go find it. But why is it lost? Adam didn't have to look far to find his wife, right? Well, it's lost because of the fragmentation, the sin of Adam, that caused a fragmentation between man and wife. You have to go seek that missing fragment. Now, with this, we're coming into a very deep concept. That's the concept of kiddushin, getting married. The official marriage service, which is called a kinyan. Right? It's called an acquisition. Now, the Achronim ask, how was, it's a famous question, how was Adam Mekadesh Chava, right? There were no Edom, right? There's no legally competent witnesses to witness the marriage. How are they married? The truth is, the question is not a question. Adam and Chava were naturally married. They didn't need Kiddushin, and that's for two reasons. First and foremost, is that they had no other option. If you have 5 women to choose from, so you're not naturally married to any of them because, why this one you can have that one, why that one you can have that one, right? So you have to single one out with Kiddushin, right? And that's why Hariyat Miyuchedetli is actually a good, valid Lashon, because you're special and designated for me, right? It's actually a valid Lashon of Kiddushin, the Gemara says. All right, so first of all, Adam and Eve had no alternatives. So that's one reason why they were naturally married, because there was no other man and there was no other woman. The issue of not being married is because you have multiple options. There were no multiple options. But there's a deeper reason, which runs parallel to this. We need Kiddushin because we are fragmented. As a result of the chet of Adam Rishon, we are fragmented. Just like body and soul are somewhat fragmented, right? Man and his bat zug that was decreed in heaven are also fragmented. They're fragmented because of the sin. The schism between body and soul has a parallel schism between man and wife. We have to overcome that fragmentation with acquisition. Acquisition. Make it yours. It's been fragmented. It's been several. The kinyan overcomes that. And that's why it's no coincidence that's called, that the kinyan is called kiddushin, sanctity, right? It's because of the chilul, right? The how we profaned ourselves. That's what creates the schism. Now, chilul, the profane, which is after of kadosh, is chol. The Zohar says that the root of the word is halal, vacuum. There's vacuum. There's dead space between me and her. There's a halal, because it's chulin, because we made things non-kadosh. Once we brought things down to the level of chol, there's now fragmentation. There's halal. There's vacuum between us. It has to be overcome with kinyan, and that kinyan is called kiddushin. We inject kedusha to where it's missing, and that's, as it were, the glue that makes the fragments stick together, the glue that overcomes the vacuum. That's why there's kinyan, and that's why the kinyan is called kiddushin. Right? And then that's why kiddushin is actually not as it were, a marriage license, the license to live together, because that's baloney. You don't need a license to live together. Animals live together without a license. Right? The kiddushin is to merge with your wife in a way that the particles are pulled together, and now the tselem, the divine image, is complete. Right? The divine image is complete. All right. The divine image is now complete, Baruch Hashem. All right, that's kinyan, that's kiddushin, and so kiddushin overcomes the schism created by the Chet Adam Rishon, right, which has its, so they had ramifications, parallel to its ramifications to the schism between body and soul is ramifications between man and wife. And this is all mefurish in the Medrash Hanelam, in the Zohar, in this week's parsha of Chayei, how man is like the neshama and the woman's like the guf of a tzaddik, right? The guf of a tzaddik that has done all the mitzvahs, the guf of a tzaddik is called Sarah. That's what it says in Zohar in this week's parsha. The guf of the tzaddik is called Sarah, right? The neshama of the tzaddik is called Avram. And just like how Avram loved Sarah and took care of Sarah and attended the funeral and eulogized her, when a tzaddik dies, the neshama of the tzaddik also comes to the funeral of the body, cries over the body, says a eulogy over the body. They're married. And this is the secret of tzaddikim b'misasam kruyim chayim, rishayim afil b'chayim kruyim mesim. Tzaddikim, even when they're dead, they're called alive because their body and soul, like, they're married. They're married to each other. There's a real bond there that even transcends death, right? Whereas a Russia, even his lifetime, his body and soul have no shalom bayis because his soul wants to do what's right, and the body is not doing that. There's a medrash in Shochar Tov that says that a few times a day, depending on how wicked the person is, the neshama just wants to leave. Gets sick up and fed up with the person, because the body's doing bad and neshama wants to leave until Hashem has to intervene and force them to stay together. So in Russia, even in his lifetime, is like that because the body and soul are unbonded in any way. The tzaddik, that the body, which is the wife, the good wife, the ishak sher osa ratzon bala, the body does what the soul wants. They're married, and even in death do they not part, right? It's only a temporary separation, but they remain bonded even in death. In Al-Pi Kabbalah, there's a level of soul by the grave called the Havla de Garmi, the heat of the bones. It's not a real separation. It only looks like a separation, right? All right, so what's happening in this week's parsha. Right, what's happening in this week's parsha? Everything that Adam and Sarah, excuse me, that was a very appropriate slip. Everything that Abraham and Sarah were about, as starting the Jewish people. The meaning of the Jewish people is a nation that has a destiny to fix the Chet of Adam Rishon. Abraham and Sarah started it. It finishes with Melech HaMashiach. Right? Abraham and Sarah started. It finishes with Melech HaMashiach. Right? Everything about Abraham and Sarah's life is about fixing the Chet of Adam Rishon. Right? And Abraham and Sarah's good marriage, right, is a tikkun for how marriage fell apart with the Chet Adam Rishon. Right? And it's no coincidence that after Chet Adam Rishon, there's no discussion of married life. You know why? Because how people live together with their wives is just like how animals mate just to keep the species going, right? The spiritual bond of Hashlama Tatzelem, of completing the Tzelem, was never restored until Avram and Sarah came on the scene. Right? And you know what? And that's in the big picture. And in the individual, right? The body and soul, their relationship was never, reconciled. Which meant that, the body was like a piece of, it's like an old car, right? The soul used it while it was, confined to Olam Hazeh, right? It's finished. Put it in junkyard. So maybe people were buried. Perhaps they were, perhaps they weren't. Doesn't make a difference. The burial of people, and whatever was done after they died, did not represent final respects to the loyal helpmate of the neshama. It was like disposing of the old car, right? So there was like no final respects paid, because no final respects were due, because they viewed the dead body as like a car that just just lost its engine head. It's finished. It's finished. It was just put away. But Avram and Sarah now are rebuilding, the Tzelem, right? And they're building a nation that lives this way, lives bikdusha, rebuilds the Tzelem. And that's why Avram and Sarah, there's so much detail to their, their married life, their life as a couple. And then it comes to its high point, seeing how even in death they do not part. Avram loved her and cried for her and eulogized her and took care of her. And right. But here's the point: what brings out all this specialness is the end of Maras HaMachpelah, right? Maras HaMachpelah, right? It's not, first of all, besides final respects and buying it for her, not just dumping her anywhere. Right, but it's more than that. That Maras HaMachpelah, the double cave. It's like kefil of himotze timotze biado agneva chayim shtayim masham, getting double. The Ganav pays kefil, the cave of Kefel, Maras HaMachpelah, the cave of Kefel, representing that for the Jew, right? The day he dies and the day he's buried, seemingly lost, but it's really the day where he's going to refine himself and get double. That's what Maras HaMachpelah is all about. And now take a look. There's two shitas in the Gemara. Rashi brings. Whether it was double in what way? There was a chamber within a chamber, or there was a bias va'aliyah. There was a bias and there was a higher floor, right? A bias va'aliyah, right? These are two metaphors for the relationship of the Shama and Guf. Cheder lefnim mecheder, right? There was a room with a chamber within a chamber. That's the external chamber is the body, and the internal chamber is the soul. Like the famous Gemara in Brachas, the 5 Borchi Nafshis are Keneged HaKarshko, Keneged the Neshama. The Neshama's Yoshev B'chadrei Chadarm, sits in the inner chambers of the body, the inner chambers of the reality of the person. And Hashem also sits in the inner chambers of reality, Chedrei Chadarim, right? The body is the internal, the guf is the external. But even more so, Bayis Va'aliyah, it was a house with an attic, right? So there's a principle in halacha. It's a whole Gemara, Parakin Bab Mitzvah called Bayis Va'aliyah, right? Discussing, if the body, if you had one resident that lived in the bias, another resident that lived in the aliyah, and the bias fell down, right? The whole thing collapsed. So obviously the upper floor has nowhere to live. So a person who has the ground floor, I'm just building mine. I'm not helping you build your attic. I'm not enabling you to build the attic. So the man who owns the attic has the right to live in that house until he helps him build his attic also. Beisa la'aliyah mishtabda. The bias is meshubit to the aliyah. The bias is meshubit to the attic. The bias has to serve the attic. The ground floor, the bias, Beisa zuishto, which is also the guf, is meshubit to the aliyah, the higher floor. The higher floor is the neshama. Right? The doubleness of that cave represents the doubleness of everything that we spoke about. And by no coincidence, it overcomes the fragmentation, that these two separate entities are actually bonded together as a doubleness. Body and soul, man and wife. And that's why in that thing, it's zugot. Another machpel, it's kafel bezugod. Couples are buried there. Couples are buried there. The doubleness, the two floors, the two-ness, the chayim shnayim misham, the kefel, right? That's what gets Reba Martha, and by no because it has to be bought, it has to be acquired, like Uwesbar, because the acquisition is what overcomes fragmentation. There's the man, there's the object, they're fragmented, acquisition overcomes the fragmentation and brings them together. Right? It had to be acquired. It had to be acquired from Ephron. Right? Ephron, so Afar Nun. Right, so Rav Isaac Cover explains, that Ephron represented the power of the snake. Right, the long nun looks like a snake. Nun, nachash. Ephron, what does the snake eat? He eats afar. He eats that's snake food. And that's what man decomposes. He goes back to afar. Right, you have to buy it from Ephron. You have to pull it out, pull the pieces out from the realm of the evil. Pull the good pieces together. They're fragmented by the evil that gets in the way. Pull it together. That pulling together the fragments is called mekach, taking, acquiring. And that acquiring is kadosh, right? And that's the beginning of the Bnei Ches that they witness this. And Bnei Ches also alludes, chet is also lashon of broken. They allude to the shattered vessels, the fragmentation that there was a chet of Adam Rishon, but they're there to admit and to clarify mekchol shel tzaddik. When a tzaddik acquires something, he's pulling the good matter together. All the fragmentation that was put into the bria by the chatoim, right? The tzaddik with his acquisition pulls the pieces together, pulls the good pieces together. Right? Right, and that's it, and now we can understand, right? I can understand le'es mitzvah. That's what our Torah learning pulls things out through the power of Torah and mitzvahs. That's the tikkun that we make in the bria. We pull things together. The whole learning process of pilpul, of pulling pieces together from jumping one to another, pulling the fragments together, and that's why the Ramchal says in the Adir B'Amoram that business. And it's particularly brought up by Avram Avinu. He gave Ephron 400 shekel kesef over la socher. Over la socher. It was, what does Rashi say? Right, and also Unclus. It would be it's currency that would be accepted anywhere. The power of Torah, says the Ramchal, is like money. You know how money is different than the barter system? Because money goes round and round and round. Not only does money make the world go round and round, money itself goes round and round. Barter system, trade, it ends there. I took this and you took that, and I'm going to use this and you're going to use that. Money makes its way around because money you can't eat, right? So I pay you and you give me your thing. And then that guy used that money to buy something else. And that guy uses that money to buy something else. The money never gets consumed because money you can't eat. It makes its way around the world. Money goes all the way around the world making acquisitions. It travels and the money finally, those resources will finally reach a very, very far place. That's the special sgula of Torah learning. Torah makes its way around the world, pulling the fragments together. Makes its way around the world, pulling the fragments together. And you know what's like? That's like the cycle of life. Going round and round is like the cycle of life. A person, you think that it's over when he's dead and buried. Oh, over there it's just beginning. Over there is making the proper, necessary, required steps to move on, to be higher, and to be resurrected. Right? And with this we can understand, the Pirush on, the Medrash says, in this week's parsha, Hashem Dei Tmimim, right? Hashem knows the days of the wholesome, the days of the righteous, called the wholesome. Kashem Shein Tmimim Kach Hayem Tmimim, just like they are wholesome, their lives are wholesome. And then the Medrash goes, Kahada Agilta Tmimta, like this wholesome calf, but says the Meishilach, not wholesome calf, wholesome Igla, Miloshin Igul, wholesome circle. For the righteous person, life is a cycle, just goes round and round. From death and burial and decomposition, you come to resurrection, and that's the way you make it to resurrection. It's a circle. From loss, you go from loss to himotze, to mitzo, to finding, and when you find, you get double. That's what's happening in Chayei Sarah. That's what's happening this week's parsha, right? Where a tremendous headway is being made in Tikkun Chet Adam Arishan. We'll stop here. Stop here. Stop here. Stop here. Stop here.